share that feedback with you. But to our committee members, thank you for being here on a Friday afternoon after a full work week. And to members of our audience, thank you for being here and sharing in the process and watching the committee do their hard work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our chair, Alan Stein, and he's going to take us through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Mary. Everybody missed me the other night. Anybody noticed I was appreciate Aaron for filling in on that listening session. I understand we had a good one. I think, Lisa, that we have to approve the minimum goals. But how's that go? Good. What I'd like to ask Lisa Defendahl to do is share with us what's in the packet, and then I will just say a word or two about where we are in the process and how we hope that we're moving toward the home stretch here. So,
hey everybody. Of course, the first thing that should be because they're waiting for you at your places is the agenda, and then next the minutes, which I'll let Alan take care of. The next page is the compilation of the written comments from the last time you gathered in this meeting room. Of course, you know, we put up a notepad on the wall, and any members of the community are welcome to write their comments there. On February 20th, a small group of committee members met with several of our principals from the elementary, middle, and high school, and we have compiled the remarks from that meeting. There were two principals who were unable to make it to that meeting who sent in comments via email, and so those are included in here as well. Next is Let's Talk. 184 comments. That's what happens when you guys don't meet for 2 weeks. And we have separated them into general comments about the boundaries and the work of this group, about grandfathering. There were several people who wrote in and asked a question about the placement of the Spanish immersion program, and then dozens and dozens of comments about specific neighborhoods. And then we all owe Hannah a great big thank you for typing up all of the feedback from our listening sessions. We didn't have a chance to edit it, like for spelling or for, you know, we will not be editing to take anyone's comments out or to change anything that anyone said. But we were planning to run a spell check and make sure that we punctuated correctly. So there may be a couple little minor things before we post it online, but that is all in here for your viewing pleasure.
thank you, Lisa. Okay. We are, as a committee, committed to staying on our schedule. So I'll start from the back end and say that it is our goal and our hope that we will turn over our finished sets of boundaries being drawn, as well as our recommendations all together, some that were within our scope and some that are not, by the end of March. That gives us about 4.5 weeks. We have scheduled, what was the number, Sandra, what did you tell me? 9 meetings in March to get to the finish line. Those meetings are scheduled if we need them. We don't know if we're going to need them or not. The back end will probably need at least a week or 2 before we turn everything over to the school board, those folks who have hired us. And we were going to probably need, Aaron is going to be leading our effort to consolidate all of our final recommendations into final form. There'll be a number of our committee members who will be assigned to assist in that task. We've asked Mr. Defendahl to be the staff person to help make that happen. We think that's about a week, maybe two. So that means we need to get most of the rest of our work done in these next 2.5 to 3 weeks, which translate into 3, 4, 5, or 6 meetings along the way. We, as always, all of those meetings will be held in public, probably right here, as we have continued to do. And our final maps will be published and drawn. We probably won't hold public sessions for our subcommittee, who will be writing and drafting that report. And we will figure out a way to share with the public what all of that is prior to, or at least simultaneous with, taking our presentation to the school board. Frankly, I don't know how we do that, Mary. I suspect somebody will tell us at some point, whether we come to a school board meeting or press conference or whatever we do. So that's the plan. From a more technical perspective, what we hope to be starting this evening is we have our tentative lines drawn. We have had 2 listening sessions. We have consolidated, I would tell you, quite a few suggestions, ideas, concerns, and we intend to address every single one of those in the next few meetings with Scott and see if any of them make sense or don't, if they are worthy of more conversation, or if they throw too much of our previous work out the window, and we, of course, don't want to do that if we don't have to. We have found that there are a number of suggestions and concerns from the community, but as you might imagine, they are in overwhelming numbers overlapping. So if we got 200 suggestions, we might have only had 10 ideas, that are just being magnified by different people in the same neighborhoods. And in fact, we've got one neighborhood that it appears cut and paste everything and send it around to everybody. That's fine. We all got it. So we're going to try to consolidate all of those. And I will tell you also that some of the committee members have been doing some work on their own, reevaluating some of our work. And they, too, have some suggestions that we will consider, along with all others, as we go through this process. So that's where we are. We are very hopeful of staying on schedule and trying to move forward. And with that, the committee has determined that we want to start examining some of those concerns and suggestions tonight, starting with the high schools. And we're going to go somewhat in reverse order of what we've been for the last few months, but the same order that we actually really started with. And so we'll go high schools, and then middle schools, and then elementary schools in determining boundaries, all against the backdrop of our guiding principles assigned to us by the school board itself. And during that process, we'll try to make whatever adjustments make sense and fit within the context of all adjustments district-wide. Our goal has always been to do the best overall plan for all 40,000 plus children and families in our community. And that may or may not fit within particular suggestions or concerns, but we're going to examine every one of them as we go along. So, having said all of that, Oh. Yeah, and we're going to do all that right after we approve them.
Alan, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second, Doug. Kathy, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, going back. Rezoning, listening, session, feedback is where we're going. And I'd also like James to lead us in some discussions from our sort of internal committee work as we go along. But let's try to make these tonight, folks, germane to getting our lines drawn for high schools. With that, well, I should probably say one more thing. One of our committee members had a death in the family. Julie Wallace's father passed away today, I think.
Funeral was today.
Oh, the funeral was today. So I just want to publicly state our condolences and hope that their family is in good hands. Okay, thanks. Okay, here we go.
I'll put the high school next up.
High school next, please. Scott, you're on, right?
I'm here.
Was that a yes?
I'm here.
Thank you. And I'm going to open this up to committee members, and we just go straight through your concerns and suggestions.
Alan, I'd like to start with the Copperfield area in Dunbar and Lafayette. That's been a big point of discussion. We're going to start there.
Notes. All right, let's try to grab some of those specific questions. The more specific we can be with study area numbers, folks, the easier this process will go. The maps you have before you and on the screens are our proposed, last proposed lines for the high school. Steve, you want to?
I can't see the stayers aren't up there. I don't know what the specific.
I'll help you with study area numbers.
The Copperfield area that I know is there that we got a lot of feedback on. So we
Probably need to give Scott a little bit more information.
I don't know what the number is.
It's that part of the Lafayette. It's 579, 580, 581, and 588.
Yeah.
Which part, up here or down here?
Down at the bottom.
Right at the county line,
Southwest.
there you go. 579, 580, 581, and 588.
What are specific suggestions, Stephen?
Can we just see if we can bring up the capacity numbers to look at to see what it would do moving, or even look at how many students are in those three study areas, so we know how many students we're dealing with.
They want to stay at Dunbar, is what they were telling me.
And I do think there's some transportation concerns there that do make sense, sending kids from that area all the way down Claysville Road or Harrisburg Road to Lafayette in the morning to difficult trip.
14 students in that area. Those four study areas.
114. 114.
So if we, let me understand correctly, if we take a look at those study areas and move those kids back to Dunbar, we're impacting capacity by 114 additional at Dunbar.
No, that was all grades, right?
9 through 12.
Yeah. It's just high school.
What that would do would be Dunbar to 108%, Lafayette down to 88.
That's what moving back.
It's 103 and 94.
And we also heard the same thing from Plantation, that they want the same move.
That gets us 180 over capacity at Dunbar.
So we might look and see if there's some students closer to Lafayette that are currently in Dunbar that we can maybe make a switch with.
Actually,
Like
if
the
you
area
look,
down by Turfwood Mall.
yeah, there's an area right there that was in Lafayette, is now in Dunbar. If you move it back to Lafayette, then see what happens there.
I would suggest that
Right outside Mason, Heagley, and Harrodsburg Road there.
we should also keep in mind that Dunbar has a lot of projected growth. The tables that show that.
So like by 2019, 2020, their projected residency supposed to be around 2365 or 116%. Now granted, by 2019, 2020, overall in the district, the capacity is 104%.
74.
What's the ROC?
Damn, what study group is Stark Springs at Beaumont Park? He's got the map.
Without this change, that's the projected number.
Correct.
So with this change, it'll be 114 more, and then compound with projected growth. It's going to grow somewhat. So we're looking at, what, 3,000 kids? What would that number be?
2,300 with the growth.
2,300?
And then, I mean, if you add another,
And then you add another
Like
114,
24.
and that would average up a little bit more.
2,500, yeah.
Yeah, 125, so you're probably 2,400. Yeah, well, at least, yeah. That's a big number.
So if we maybe go up, then see if there's even students if there's students in Lafayette there that somewhat balance that out.
What about this?
The ones that we took out were 350, 351, 332, and 333.
And they,
That's the Della Drive area. So we that within Lafayette, and we put that in Dunbar.
Right.
it's right across the street. Yeah. We really need to do that. I mean, how many kids are we talking about with those, Scott? That's all. So that's less than half.
It's 330.
33, 33.
total students in that area, each one separate.
So what happens to Lafayette? Scott, are you still there with us?
Yeah, I didn't hear what you guys wanted then.
Oh,
Can I ask a question?
Well, how many students were in those 4 studies? 49. Yeah.
49.
So are we
Currently
planning,
go to Lafayette.
we are not planning on seeing a lot of growth in the Lafayette area, correct? That's pretty firm. What if, so Lafayette's at 94% right now. What if we took the Dunbar area from Versailles Road and New Circle Road over? Would that alleviate anything?
So the colony.
The James Lane Allen area, basically? The entire area inside New Circle Road?
As a start. And we can back up to Red Mile Road. Take the area, Dales Road to Harrisburg Road. Use Mason Healy Drive for the north, for the inside boundary, and New Circle for the outside boundary. Take that entire square and see how many kids are in that square.
But first, if we're looking at this area first, why don't we actually move this back to Lafayette since it's there anyway, and we're trying to relieve.
yeah, that's what the suggestion is. Moving back to Lafayette and leave Copperfield for whatever those study areas were back in Dunbar and see if those balance each other a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to do that.
Thank you. Folks, be looking through your notes to any other suggestions or comments that have to do with these areas. Okay. Okay. Because what I really like us to do is to resolve an area. You know, for better or worse, let's fix it and then move on to the next one.
I've got right in that same area. I heard from 570, 540, 541. That's 573. They want to stay at Dunbar.
473.
That's hot.
Where's 573?
It's a little square right there.
Oh, that little tiny thing. Okay, I'm sorry.
And I heard from some developers out there, some people, that it was affecting their occupancy.
So let's keep in mind that we're already, what we're trying to do is reduce some of the capacity issue that we have at Dunbar. We started with that 11 months ago, Dunbar being too overcrowded. We don't solve that. So, I mean, when we say we want to move them back or keep them in there, you know,
Okay, but
we need a counterbalance.
that's a concern. And then we just moved 50 students back in there, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. And say,
But let's see what happens when we move these areas back over to Lafayette out of Dunbar and see where
I
we're.
just want to get those areas on the table.
Which areas? Because these are already in Lafayette.
Well, and the comment is that
If they want to move them back.
those could go back to Dunbar too, that they have similar arguments to Copperfield.
But that's not moving back. They're in Lafayette now.
They currently
They're currently Dunbar.
Go to Dunbar.
And our proposed Lafayette.
That's not these. No, it's visually.
So if we bring it back to Dunbar, it puts Dunbar on 10%
Say that again, Scott, please.
I'm sorry. If we put it back to Dunbar, it brings Dunbar over 10% over.
Those areas that Mike just mentioned. Is that right, Michael?
Well, yeah, but there was, how many students was there? I mean, like 40 students. You took it off.
No, there was 81 students in those study areas.
Yep. Comparing Plantation and Copperfield, yep. About 80 students in Plantation, about 125 in Copperfield. Both of them are currently in Dunbar. Both of them are proposed to go to Lafayette in the draft proposal.
But it just was repeated over and over in my meetings. They didn't see the reason. I mean, they were inside of Dunbar almost. They're outside of Man of War. They didn't want to make the long run up Clay's Mill. So, I mean, I thought we were working some of the other Lafayette off of Dunbar that was closer to Lafayette.
Well, these moves have dropped us at Lafayette to 87%.
Basically took 220 students out of Lafayette and moved them to Dunbar by moving Copperfield and Plantation. We moved 49 or so, 50 back. We moved the other ones. Basically have 170 net loss.
So we
at
took
Lafayette. So we need to find basically 170 students from Dunbar, potentially
from Dunbar,
Lafayette.
yes.
Which would be that South Lake Easy area that we were talking about a minute ago.
The vicinity of James Lane Allen, Beaumont, Middle School.
Turfland Mall, go all the way to Mason Healy. Mason Healy to Versailles Road, to New Circle Road, back to Harrisburg Road, that square. You take it, that gets all of that Healy Green and Garden Springs, Beaumont Park, put all that in Garden and Lafayette, see what happens.
So you want to do it all at once, you want to do it by section?
Do it all at once and get it over with. No.
Is that
That's a start over kind of thing.
Not really. Not if you're trying to come up with.
Am I in the correct area here?
Well, here's the point. We may not be able to move these others because we're not signing alternatives.
Yes, you are, Scott.
Let me see what it looks like.
Let's just start maybe just going straight up between
Why don't we-
Mason and
Listen, I don't want us to be making changes for the sake of change. Every move that we make that makes one neighborhood happy is going to make another one unhappy. Those are zero sum for us. So we should not even be thinking about making anybody happy because we're not happy. What we should be thinking about is what makes the very best sense all the way around without trashing all the work that we've done to come up with, our free and reduced lunch numbers being where they are and without changing our capacities too much. So if there are some corresponding moves, that makes sense. But increasing an overcapacity school by 150 kids in a large developing population area makes no sense. To me, one person. It's one person.
I think Doug's idea is worth looking at, though, because that would be putting more capacity. They're relatively close to Lafayette. We would put more people in Lafayette, and we'd reduce the overcrowding at Dunbar. If we just looked at that area and see what it did.
That's an area that won't have any growth to it, so.
So study area 364, 363, 382, 383 are pretty, and I can't see that number, but 330 and maybe 331 are pretty close in proximity to Lafayette. Some of them are in Lafayette now. So
None of them are in Lafayette.
None of those are.
Okay, and the proposed they're in Dunbar, but in fact,
No, they're
in Dunbar now.
That's what's already.
The recent change made the line.
We're talking about all of them.
outside of that.
okay, but the ones that I read out loud.
No,
No.
you're talking about.
We've already moved. You've already moved all those.
There were 49 kids. We moved it back to Lafayette. 49 kids.
Let's have corresponding moves if we can.
Right. Well, I would just
like to provide the perspective of the principal at Lafayette, just expressing that the moves that we make in switching for capacity or for whatever reason, to try to maintain equity when you're making those moves in regards to socioeconomic factors.
We need to look at that.
Just to say, look at that.
Because right now the numbers are within a percentage point. I don't know how much moving this would impact that, but it's just something to consider.
Well, keeping in mind that Lafayette is already the lowest free and reduced lunch number in the whole district, high schools. You know, I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see how these moves could impact that. I think that's what you're saying.
Well, okay, now, are these the study areas you wanted me to move? And it does bring them both to about 98%. So we can do this and then see what it does to the free and reduced.
We leave that work early because we kind of did that haphazardly picking numbers. We want to make sure we split neighborhoods or anything before we.
Well, the boundaries, though, are Versailles Road and New Circle Road. I mean, that's.
We just kind of see we're trying to grab some without paying much attention to the neighborhood there real quick.
Yeah, this is all the Garden Springs neighborhood.
I don't think we want to get back in the habit of splitting that if we can avoid it.
No.
So can we like keep all the neighborhood together and then see what it does to our numbers?
Yeah, 330 and 330. 330 is a different area, for sure.
So we can grab, is that 383? Is that 381 or 360? 381 and 352.
Those are closer to Dunbar. Why don't we leave those in Dunbar and get the ones up off
The inside
Cross
New
Keys?
Circle. They're inside New Circle. Not even closer to Dunbar.
Yeah, they're inside New
I
Circle.
live over there. They're not.
They're closer to Dunbar than these others. Is the point. So why don't we start with those?
I would also think you really should look at future. Scott, could you be showing them the future enrollment impact of this? I think Dunbar.
I'm not going to be able to do that on the fly right now.
Right.
I'd have to bring it up. I mean, I could. It just might take a little bit.
Yeah, but maybe do this and then switch over to the version that has future population.
So you want me to do this move right here?
Let's just see it.
Okay, from a capacity standpoint, it's very good. I'm going to switch over to the free reduced.
This, by the way, it looks like you didn't include plantation in this version. Just Copperfield. Free and reduced changed a lot.
From what to what? I can't read it.
Yeah, Dunbar is now 37, and Lafayette's 42.
Well, Dunbar was at 40 and Lafayette was at 39.
Right.
Yeah,
Now
they're still under Tate's Creek and Bryan Station significantly.
Well, we need to go back and see if he did get that plantation or not.
You know, Scott, you didn't
recommit those plantation study areas.
I don't think he knows.
Back to Dunbar, no.
Let's do that now. Tell us for sure.
So you're going to add plantation back.
Bob, is there anybody in 573? Because that was originally in Lafayette also. So does that need to be picked back up officially?
Well,
He's getting it, okay.
It's just a floodplain.
I think it's,
Okay, so that brings from a free and reduced Dunbar to 37 and Lafayette to 43.
What did it do to the capacity?
Okay, I'm going to have to switch back over to capacity.
Well, you moved to Lafayette. You must put it back in Denver.
It's Dunbar 103 and Lafayette at 94, which is exactly where we started, number-wise.
Could we see the projection now?
Yeah, but it's going to take me a few minutes to set it up because I have to open it up, the projection, then I have to make the same changes to that projection. So if you've got something else to discuss while I'm doing that, please do.
Can we go back up and take another look at the point I was trying to make earlier? From just the logistics of kids getting to school, it would make sense if we were going to move some into Lafayette from the Dunbar area that would kind of stay along the Lane Allen corridor for the ease of transportation. So why not pick up more of those study areas on the north side of Lane Allen rather than on the south side? But the ones on the south side of Lane Allen, that's easy for them to get it done.
Can we see how many kids are in that study area?
Did we not pull on Lafayette? I can't.
No. No, I don't think so. No. We just pulled these. Okay.
Dave, you're talking about 348, 349, that area north.
330, 331.
Start with 320.
They can just run right up Lane Allen and get to the Lafayette. Right.
Mason Heatley. I mean, 329, for example, is still on Mason Heatley.
They asked before all those areas, right?
Well, you can't get to 329 from Mason Heath. Right.
I just wonder why we just
That wouldn't be simple.
Okay, so did we want to do any changes here before I go and do something else?
Can you just tell us how many kids are in there?
So give me the numbers 329.
330, 31, 348, and 49.
$114.
No, we don't have to. We want to see it and see what it does to free and reduce.
Yes.
That's not going to be a good move.
Probably not.
Probably not.
That's what I want to do.
So free and reduced, it gets it 44% for Lafayette and 35 for Dunbar.
So Lafayette's two percentage points higher. Dunbar's 3 less. Is that right?
By moving that group in, yes.
Do we want to keep this and then look at the projections?
We're going to need to move to the rest of that neighborhood too, though, right?
The rest of the garden side one?
Yeah, this little area here.
Is that in separate study area?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to split the study area if that's what we're trying to do.
I can see how many students are in there currently. There's not that many, looks like.
Should we just revisit that then since we're going to have to split the study area?
Yeah, we don't want to.
That street, I think, is part of that whole other study area.
There's only 6 students in this area, so really I could cut the study area here and put this area into a different study area. And there's only 6 students, so it's not going to change too much of anything.
Well, do that one.
Oh. You can't do that on the fly, that's right? No. We think I make a note that.
What about those 2 students right there across Alexandria? They're not considered part of the same
Well,
neighborhood?
yeah, my opinion, that neighborhood, the larger area functions as a more complete area rather than that specific red boundary. You know, both sides, that's Travelers Road, Darien.
It's the Travelers from Darien Drive and over to Garden Springs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of overhead.
So we'd want to drive over others too.
Yeah. I would, that red line is not one of the most significant lines on here.
So we can go back and grab those, but we don't think we need to worry about for calculation purposes right now.
Or leave them with the rest of their neighborhood, even though the red line says that they should be separated.
I'm sorry, there are 7 students in this one.
So, I mean, are we comfortable with Dunbar at 35%? I think that's the question you have to really decide.
I'm comfortable with it at 35%.
Look at the projections. You could reach up to the Georgetown corridor if you wanted to. Which one is 35? Dunbar or Lafayette?
Dunbar's now, we kind of flipped them, but Dunbar's now at 35.
You can't take Georgetown and carve it out. We will have to.
No, that would make it worse.
How long would it take Scott to run the projections? The projections put in.
What about these areas up here, for Sales Road areas we took from Dunbar to put Lafayette? Could we move some of those back to Dunbar?
Well, what about the Garden Springs? We're pushing the Dunbar envelope on capacity,
Right.
as we are.
I
I think we're in an acceptable range now, given the projections that we're anticipating. And I think we're pretty close. We've got acceptable ranges on all of our metrics here. We haven't split up any neighborhoods that I can tell. We could put the 49 kids from Garden Springs back in Dunbar, or back in. Where are they now? They're in Dunbar now, right?
Yeah, every place we're talking about is currently in Dunbar.
So that would be keeping them, not moving them. Okay.
I don't know if you want to complicate this with middle schools too, but what you're doing is playing with Beaumont Middle School. And you've now put Beaumont Middle School absolutely on the boundary between Lafayette and Dunbar. And basically Beaumont fully feeds into Dunbar right now. And this means that all the inner city portion of Beaumont would go to Lafayette, and all the suburban portion of Beaumont would stay at Dunbar.
I mean, we've got lots of middle schools that are divided.
Well, help me with that.
What you doing now?
Help me understand why we can't do that.
It's the feeder idea of trying to have all the kids go together to the same school. And of course, and there was some discussion of that in these meetings, that ideally, especially at the middle school level, it's nice for the 8th graders to go together to 9th graders. You have violations, but currently, Beaumont is one of the places that does it best, where all the kids go.
Well, we have our largest capacity is there, so we can accommodate more of those opportunities at Beaumont. You know what? I'm going to suggest that we make a note of that and deal with it as we look at our middle schools. Let's stay on high schools.
Okay, we're going to make any more changes here before we go to projections?
We make sure that we go back at some point and grab those 9 kids or whatever it was in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I'll split that and be able to do that.
Okay.
That's no problem.
And other high schools areas?
Yeah, there are other.
Well, we're going to look at an issue at a time, whichever high schools they have to be. All right, everybody look through your notes to make sure we haven't overlooked anything that has to do with all of these areas we've just been talking about, from Lafayette.
Hey, Alan,
Yes,
on the last page of our attachment, going down for master station on Dunbar
Yep.
by area, study areas as well as Lafayette. Do you want to look at those areas?
We can look at that next.
It went out of Bryan Station.
I think when Masterson Station was built, they originally went to Dunbar. Some of them originally went to Dunbar and then were moved to Bryan Station. But like discussion about going back to Dunbar.
I think that discussion is more based around the fact that the way their feeder pattern goes is from, it's like non-performing school. They have like a decent elementary school, and then it goes non-performing middle school, non-performing high school. So they're literally sending their kids from one non-performing school to another with no hope of getting a better education. So they're looking for some way to get out of that pattern.
Let me just interject, because I've heard and had many, as you know, conversations about that too. I'm not sure that's a redistricting. Performance of school, resources, et cetera, making schools better performing or not, are outside of the realm of what we can do with redistricting. And all I would suggest to you, from an absolute common sense perspective, is that we're in a highly developing area around Dunbar. We're already at or over capacity. We're under capacity at Bryan Station. Masterson Station is a big chunk of kids. It makes no sense to me, either from a capacity perspective nor from a free and reduced perspective, of moving those kids from Masterson Station to Dunbar and taking them out of Bryan Station. I agree. I understand the concern and the argument, and I'm sensitive to it. But from a redistricting perspective, that's crazy in my view. That's not correct.
I understand.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but as we're redistricting, we are developing the feeder patterns. So we kind of do have a little bit of, we do kind of have control at this point on whether they stay in that same cycle.
I'm wondering if, the other side of that, using the dividing line of Leestown Road, if McConnell's Trace ought not to be moved back over Bryant Station out of Dunbar.
I think so too.
You're gonna put yourself in even more disadvantageous free reduced lunch situation.
At Dunbar.
At Bryant Station.
Well, Bryant Station's numbers go up, Dunbar's numbers will go right down.
Bryant stations don't change very much. That corridor is about the same percentage as Bryant Station.
But Dunbar would go down.
Dunbar would go down.
And that's a fair consideration. I think we're at good numbers of capacity and free and reduced on those two high schools as we have it right now. But
I've got the projections up if you're interested.
Okay.
So currently it's 99 and 97%. That's with the 2014-15 students.
Right.
When we move up to 2016.
Just go straight to 2020.
All right.
You don't mind? I mean,
Not at all.
We don't need to see.
We don't need to see the journey.
Yeah.
So you want 2020 vision?
So Lafayette's 115% and Dunbar at 109. But everybody's over at that point.
At that point, everybody's over, and
And we'll be back at it again.
our next superintendent will be
The other group.
we'll be talking about a new redistricting committee.
I'll be retired by then.
Well,
I'll be just like this.
I wouldn't count on that. Okay, yeah. Can we let's split the difference and look at 2018, if you don't mind, just real quickly.
See, now you're getting crazy.
Yeah.
So it's 110, 108. So they stay pretty close the whole way.
I just wanted 24 members, but folks, I think we've got it locked on those. Move on. Anybody else want to beat it up anymore? Do we?
I do.
Yeah, Lester, I'm sorry.
I'm going to speed it up just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so right now, the way that where we started at the beginning of the day, Lafayette was at 39, Dunbar was at 40. Okay, the changes that we've made have put Lafayette at 44,
Right.
Dunbar at 35. So could we look at Georgetown Street coming down and that Lexington Cemetery area, flipping that, or looking at Versailles Road on the other side, and maybe flipping a study area neighborhood or two to get a little more balance between the two schools.
Like 210, 211 area.
Right, and I believe these study areas may...
Remember, we've come a long way on balancing those two schools from where we started in April. The disparity there was significant.
Yeah.
What are they now? Well, now we're at...
No, I mean,
today?
When we started today, it was 40%. Dunbar was at 40%, Lafayette was at 39%.
Well, not as what we've done.
Currently.
Current in real time.
44 at 35, with Lafayette at 44 and Dunbar at 35.
So we flipped.
You mean in the
I thought Lafayette was the lowest.
No, I'm saying
In 2015, what is...
what we've done.
How do you maps? Yeah.
Okay.
in the building, not in your analysis, in the building, Dunbar's about 40 and Lafayette is about 36.
Currently, without any redistricting.
Yes. Currently, without any redistricting, Lafayette's a little bit lower than Dunbar.
And with these numbers, that would flip.
Yes, these flip it and make it a bigger difference between the two.
But we also lowered the population of Dunbar.
Yeah. Lester?
Well,
Call your numbers, let's see them.
from a projected and population-wise, it would help, and from a free reduced lunch number-wise, I think it would also help.
Let's take a look.
We don't have to do anything.
That's fine. What number
Let's
did
take a
you
look. Let's-
210 up to 11, is that where you're talking?
Those ones have very nice distortion.
Yeah, I would do 142, 143, 147.
That's a little more. Oh, never mind. Right by the rallies.
Yeah.
Road Showers, you go to Dunbar. Newtown Pike.
And you would do what with
It does change it to 2%.
What does it do capacity?
Dunbar is still under 100% and Lafayette, so it really didn't do too much.
It did help on the free and reduced.
Yeah, it did help on the free and reduced, so those are changes worth.
And it does keep the neighborhood together.
All right, bingo.
All right.
positive?
Good job, Liz.
I accomplished something.
We set out to do. We wanted to get that to the top.
Along those lines, we see this one right here. Shall we move that back also to keep Cardinal Valley together? There's 13 students in there. Yes, no, maybe so?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Let's see what it did to the free reduce first before we commit it. It actually helped a little bit.
I think those numbers are pretty good.
I think they are too.
All right. Do you want to look at that projected?
I don't think it makes much of a
No,
difference.
it won't make it.
Okay.
We have a pretty good idea what the projected trends are.
We just heard about that new development going up on Newtown Pike and 4th Street there.
On my property.
Did we not just make the change in front of us?
Not yet.
I'm not clear. Scott, did you just commit the change or not?
I did commit it.
Actually, Lafayette's at the end lands bigger, a greater capacity than Dunbar.
That's in 2018. Okay. So are we okay with the Dunbar Lafayette area?
I'm seeing a lot of heads now.
For now, yeah.
We are for the moment. We think we are.
Okay.
Good deal. The next was raised about Masterson Station. Do we need to go through that exercise? Does anybody feel that we need to? Okay. Next.
Alan, I have one over on the in the Henry Clay in the proposed high school. It's more from the conversations I heard at the forum than on the paper. There's the one area that's along that creek, I think, that's going to Henry Clay, and everything else is going to proposed to high school, so I think we might want to take a look at it.
Okay.
What I heard on that note was, and it goes back to splitting a middle school is, you know, HAA for one or the other. The parent that spoke about it didn't have a preference. He just would like to stay together.
Well, let's take a look at that. Let's move those study areas back to Henry Clay.
Well, there is Henry Clay and everything else goes to the proposed high school. On the other side of Richmond Road, we might want to take a look at maybe if we want to move that to the new high school.
We did want to keep the pace at the new high school, though.
Right, and the parents that I talked to wanted to stay in the same feeder pattern that it already
83 and 93.
They don't want to, from what I was hearing at the meeting, they want to stay in their feeder pattern to Henry Clay.
See, and things that I've heard, what I heard was to keep all of that Hayes Boulevard area together. So you probably, I mean, you might have different.
You're both right. I mean, you know, you heard both sides.
We can just take a look at it. I don't
We
think
all
we
have.
need to do it. I think we need to take a look at it.
I think we should look at it both ways. Put
Right.
it all in Henry Clay.
Or if you split it, where you have Stewart Hall area, go to Henry Clay, and then
Scott, do you know what neighborhood you're going to?
No clue.
273, 74, 75, and 76.
Thanks, Jim.
Actually, I did have a clue. I knew it was between the new school and Henry Clay.
But let's look at that both ways. I mean, we've had numerous comments on both sides of that question. So let's just look at both of them.
So these are currently going to the new, or Henry Clay, so let's see what happens.
Henry Clay.
So that's a good amount of students in there. There's 106 students, and it brings Henry Clay down to 88% and the proposed up to 89%.
I bet our projections are going to go crazy too.
Do you want to look at this at the projections?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Wow, it's a color.
Is that red and green, or is it gold and white?
Okay.
My corneas say.
Mine just got burnt out.
Sorry. Okay, in 2018, Henry Clay's at 92, and the proposed is 109.
So we need to look
And you
at
go
it.
to 2020 on the proposed high school especially. Let's see how that new growth is going to impact it. Oh, yeah, that's not bad. You know, we've anticipated that.
So
So if we look at see what we moved that group back to Henry Clay.
Yeah, let's do it the other way now.
I'm just going to throw out the obvious here. When you look at the elementary projections, if we've got schools in 2020 or 1920 at 136% and 132%. So I know we're trying to keep projections small, but
So on our
Yeah, but
plans, we've got calls for new elementary schools. There's only
No,
one new
but-
high school being built in the next 5 years.
and those numbers will change drastically within the next 5 years because we have, what, 2 more elementary schools opening?
3.
3. So
Let's look at it.
we've got 2 of them already in here.
That was the one. But the other thing to remember too is that the total capacity for all high schools is 180.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to be over it.
well, let's look at it back in Henry Clay.
And we haven't gotten done with elementary school either.
No.
Start with high school.
It is back in Henry Clay now, and in 2020 it brought it from 20. It changed it about 6%.
Did we get the other half of the neighborhood, though?
Oh yeah, okay. Did you take the other half?
The rest of the neighborhood.
No. Which half is that?
Yeah, in terms of where we're starting, recognize that this version has what, Walnut Creek or Ridge, whatever it is, 273, and Stewart Hall are in Henry Clay. Childsburg is all in the new school. So if you want to go the other way, you'd be taking Childsburg and putting it in the new school.
We're talking about taking things out of the new school and into Henry Clay.
Right.
We just looked at the other
That's what I
side.
meant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did I not say that?
You said it was.
Yeah, Childsburg would go.
So what study areas do we want him to move to Henry Clay?
268, 69, 71, and 72.
So keep in mind, our ideal number in 2020 is not 98 or 100%, but if it's
108.
it's going to be 107 or 8. Right?
Mm-hmm. But that 100.
Well, that brings the new school to 106, and Henry Clay to 111.
And to carefully get all of Childsburg, you'd need 2 more, 255 and 256.
That's going to change it.
Right, it makes it a little worse, but that to try and get all the neighborhoods, that's what that would be.
So 102 and 113.
A little bit better.
That's still better than 127.
That is the projection. 2020 projection.
And is that a high growth area? Like we don't project a lot of.
Extremely.
Oh, yeah. All of that area.
It probably doesn't do much, but when we look at what that does to the free and reduced numbers, which were pretty much the same at those two schools.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if we think that these numbers are workable, let's look at the
Would that leave enough room for grandfathering too? That's something we're going to have to consider when we talk about doing 10th, 11th, and 12th grade for that, because the new school will not be open. We might need to consider that also.
You mean grandfathering at?
Those numbers.
Those areas are already in Henry Clay, so they won't.
Those Henry Clay numbers we were just talking about are in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be that bad now. I guess we look and see.
And those 2 areas are already in Henry Clay, so there won't. There's no grandfather in there. Let's just leave them where they are. Mm-hmm.
So it changed it about 2%, 2 to 3%. It brought Henry Clay down to 39% and the proposed high school up to 45%.
Well, without making any sort of a judgment call here, I would suggest that both of our grids have acceptable numbers, generally speaking, throughout here. Anybody want to respond to that?
Just a, can we talk about logistics for just a second? Jim, the neighborhoods is at 270s. Can you turn the study areas back on, Scott?
Sure can.
277. We've got development planned for.
Not in 277. That's outside the urban service.
Okay.
Scott, can you put the urban service?
Yeah, we got. Yeah, you just put it up.
269. Okay.
And only half of that.
Yeah, well, 2/3. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
That's somebody else's problem. That's your problem.
It's another been a problem for a long time. It's a place to put some schools.
Okay, folks. Seeing some head nods again. Everybody good?
This would leave it more the way it is currently.
It's closer to the way it is.
Yeah. It's a lot closer. So as far as grade
So we're
policy,
disrupting
it's actually healthy.
way fewer folks with this. Okay. All right. Other suggestions or concerns that have been brought to our attention in high schools? James, I need you to jump in here too, if any of, were any of them high schools?
No, changes we looked at were elementary schools.
All elementary. Okay.
Yeah. My only concern is that I don't want to touch the math based on the numbers to skew it at all. But you know, the principal at Bryan Station echoed that he was kind of concerned about his numbers being down. But I know we left that open for high growth. But even looking at the projections, we're not going to get over 90. It's not going to get Bryan Station's not going to get over 92%. But I mean, I just think it's open math we're concerned about. I don't know. I like the numbers the way they look, throughout the whole district as of right now. So I don't know if that's something we need to mess with.
Cool.
The only thing obvious I see we do is put this section here back in Bryan Station, but that's going to hurt the diversity.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing I was going to find.
There might be some areas that we've got at the new school that might should need to go back to Bryan Station.
Well, I was thinking about the using Briar Hill Road as a cutoff, but I
64.
Here.
64.
Yeah, but
Are there students
so
out
might
there?
not even students.
Rural area won't add any students. There's an additional issue that is somewhat true at all schools, but very true at Bryan Station, is the difference between the resident population and the in the building. And basically, when you look at the resident population at Bryan Station, usually 300 kids are heading to other schools. So whatever number's in there, unless we change that, the enrollment at Bryan Station is actually going to be 300 students less than you see. Now that changed a little bit, but is that going to change a lot?
Well, we do intend to recommend to the school board some programming changes that we think will address that. Whether they adopt it or not, we don't know. But I think we all feel pretty strongly about making Bryan Station more of a destination in a couple of areas that we think will balance, will make a difference in our reduced numbers as well as our capacity.
Will the current numbers, the way we left them, alter the number of teachers that are available at Bryan Station? Because I know originally we had discussed it might be good to have like lower class sizes, but then somebody said if they're that low, they'll lose teachers. Is that true?
Class size is based on students. It's like a 1 to 27, 1 to 29 ratio, not
classrooms.
But there are.
So will Bryan Station lose teachers?
Oh, yeah. And see, and that's one of my.
So that is a concern. We can't. Sorry?
Not to ratio to their students. So the student-to-teacher ratio will be the same. There'll be fewer teachers, but because there might be fewer students.
They're also changing that. They're proposing. The board is looking at, and Bryan Station would definitely be a school that's over 50% free and reduced. So they're actually looking at reducing the class student-teacher ratio for high poverty schools at high school, middle, and elementary school level.
That would make
the threshold was set at 75.
75. I'm sorry.
75. It will not.
Nobody. None of the high schools.
They did take that action this week, and it affects 2 middle schools, no high schools.
No high schools. Okay.
Sorry. When they're doing these projections, is that just through people, the students aging and going into that school, or does that include new growth?
Oh, it includes some people, yeah.
New growth. Because out in that Masterson area, past Masterson, we had about 3,000 new houses going out there over.
They have been included in these projections.
I mean, how would he know that?
Because he got the information from planning.
Get it from Jim instead of your buddy.
Go sit somewhere else.
Y'all work it out.
Hey, Mike, are they split between, are they all in Bryan Station now, or some of them are done?
All those would be in Bryan Station, all that north.
Which is what we've anticipated.
Yeah, and that's why we left it down.
Right.
Okay, Bob, would you zoom in on the map, on the boundary between Bryan Station and the new high school for just a minute, and turn the urban service boundary back on?
Get rid of your urban service.
Yeah, we don't need it.
So you can pay for the school.
Which other got?
Those that can go up and will come back and go out.
Looking for highest and best use for building up. I'll do that. All in favor of that one? Okay, guys, while we're doing this, keep looking through your notes, make sure we're not leaving anybody out. And our conversation.
The only thing that I can think of, I know we sort of skipped over Masterson Station and then moved to Dunbar, but they did have other points about if they were to be in Bryan Station to try to balance socioeconomic in other areas. And they talked about some areas along this boundary that we're looking, I think. But it's just something that I heard in the conversations of the listening session.
Anything specific that we can address?
I want to say Polo Club, they wanted to look at those areas within the Fax Bryan Station to try to adjust socioeconomic. That was what I recall from the conversation.
Well, not Polo Club.
Yeah, not the other, yeah. But
I don't think we can get away with that.
no, I think so either.
Sorry, you lived too close to this. We did. You're right.
Yeah.
Talking about Tuscany and a couple of others, those neighborhoods, right?
I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
Something that discussed at the listening session.
Anybody else hear that? I did too.
I did.
Any adjustments in this area?
Can we, Scott, can we see how many kids are in the area 16, 18, and 19? I don't think it's enough to affect any numbers at the high school level.
The rural areas, Scott?
Yeah, I'm going to get into there.
17, 18, 19.
Yeah, 16th outside the Civic Services area, pretty much. They all are, yeah. They all are.
Talking about making the boundary between Bryan and
The interstate.
make it the interstate.
Okay. There's 14 kids in there.
What does that do on transportation? Are we adding or subtracting?
Probably a wash.
Yeah, it's about a wash.
So why are we doing it?
I just wanted to see how many kids were there, see if it made any difference as far as capacity.
I think the highway is a natural boundary.
It does make
Not
that.
Inner to the eye.
But 64 would make some sense there. I'm with that too, Scott.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's see what that looks like. Let's make sure we didn't overlook something.
It's actually a direct shot in from Briar Hill to Bryan Station.
So, yeah, it really didn't change the resident numbers that much. It just made it cleaner, and it is a very natural boundary.
I'm good for sticking with that, folks. That's
Transportation, actually.
Yeah. See, we're just accomplishing like crazy.
I think we're done. So you're
All right,
suggesting
folks.
we meet every Friday?
People are focused
You know,
on
some
Friday.
people take cocktail there on Friday afternoon. Seriously. Okay. Let's keep working through the high school. If we get everything that's been brought to our attention, I think so.
I was told great job on page 3.
There you go.
I just thought we, that's great. We got a compliment.
We've had
I don't have to get the
four compliments. That's it.
I mean, the gentleman was yelling. The gentleman was yelling at me, but he said, "Great job on page 3." So.
That's perfect feeder pattern.
We didn't do
All right. Anybody? Remember what we're doing here is we're trying to close out some areas and issues, and so our goal would be not to be revisiting these things, right? We all in agreement? All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to look through your notes one more time, everybody. And Lisa, exercise too. Well, we overlooked.
Are you looking if we have a consensus on the high school plan?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking that when we look at middle school, we may look at this again with respect to feeder patterns a little bit. But other than that, right, exactly. But this is an improvement, I think.
Start at you. Coach Riley?
That's all I've heard.
Aaron?
To address tonight.
Doug, you seem to be getting the most emails.
No. Why is that?
You don't have
Because they think you're not paying attention. You're an easy mom. Okay.
All right, I just locked it in.
Hey. Alan, it might be worth mentioning for those people with us that may be concerned that we're flipping through our notes and not finding anything else, that this is only with respect to high schools.
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, we just got these as well. So
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down and read them a lot more thoroughly. But,
Yeah. We haven't done anything that doesn't involve high schools. Tangentially, at least.
But the point is, we still have notes on middle schools.
Oh,
we still have notes
yes,
on elementary
yes.
schools.
We have more notes on middle schools than we do on high schools. And you get to tell you how many notes we have on elementary schools. So, one thing at a time. Okay, folks, let's move. Let's try to get a couple of issues settled before we're done today at the middle school level. Are you good with that? Okay. Who wants to get started? All right, there's our map. Scott, can you pull up the capacity numbers on it as it sits, please?
That's what I'm getting right now.
Yes.
If I may, I have a correction to make on building capacity for one of the middle schools.
Yes, please.
After talking to their principal at one of our leadership meetings, he has a magnet program at Tates Creek Middle School, and some of the kids within the magnet program are actually within the feeder, within his districted area. So if we adjust the capacity and
His
not
current
incorporate,
attendance on.
right, the kids that live in his neighborhood, some of them are actually within that GT cluster that go to him. So I think we have his capacity at Tates Creek Middle School at 700, and I think the building is made for 900, was it? 8 something?
Anybody help us with that?
Mary, is Tates Creek Middle School capacity 9? Just physical building, does that sound right? 900?
That's what he emailed me on his notes. His
Yeah, we
building is
adjusted
made
it
for
to
900.
What did we adjusted?
we adjusted to 7.
We adjusted it to 700, but about 50 of those kids are already in his neighborhood.
Okay, so it should be 750.
So what he is suggesting is that we adjust his capacity to 750 and then go from there.
Yeah, the only question to make sure that we're, because I don't want to get into changing too many more capacities, we've worked on that quite extensively, are those 50 kids likely to continuously be?
There's no telling. It depends on who's identified just. But right now his current enrollment is 988. He has 848 neighborhood kids, and he has 140 in his GT cluster.
Sometimes his GT cluster is larger than 200 total, including both in area and out of area. Sometimes his GT cluster is large.
But is it unreasonable to make that adjustment by about 50 kids on average? That's what I'm
At
asking.
least 50, yeah.
Right now he has 140 of them. That's what he's
60,
asking.
you were 60 off there. Well, I don't have an objection. That's a small enough, and it makes some sense difference. We might be able to accommodate that. Anybody got another thought? I don't want to make that decision.
So it's simple. He's at his number's at 700. We have him at 100% capacity. We should bump his number up to 700.
That then might lend us to move some of the southern area, which is at 110% into Tates Creek, on that side of Tates Creek Road.
Or return it to Tates Creek.
Yes, return it to Tates Creek.
First things first. Are we okay with bumping his capacity up?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think we've got a consensus there. Scott, were you following?
I'm following.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Could we please turn on the high school boundaries so we can at least see the changes that we've made if we need to look at those first, those feeder pattern issues?
They're all, doesn't affect us all. The high school boundary here. Yeah, this is all of this. I'm not talking about the change. Oh, okay, different issue.
All of the changes that we've made at the high school.
Gotcha.
We'll see how they've affected those.
Alan?
So the obvious.
Hang on, Jim. Go.
I was just, while he's pulling that up, I know that several of us heard the same thing about the Copperfield and Plantation, Beaumont, Stonewall, Beaumont, whatever it is, Jesse Clark.
Jesse Clark.
So yeah, restoring the Copperfield and Plantation to Beaumont was a request at the public hearing that I heard and at the principal's meeting.
That's one of the most overcrowded ones currently.
We're at, it is
116.
the most,
There's 121 at LTMS, but it's,
yeah, it's most,
Windbur's
no,
118.
Windburg also. But it's amongst the more crowded as it is.
And we know that's 200 kids. We just saw that.
Let's revisit our process here. We don't want to throw everything out and start over. So as we examine each of these suggestions, we need to be thinking in terms of a counterbalance. We just can't move a cluster or an area or a neighborhood without moving somebody else correspondingly somewhere else.
The other thing you have to remember, Alan, is that we're looking at an average capacity of 108%. So
yeah,
that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for 108% in the middle school side.
108 now, and in 2020, if I recall, it's 119 on average, right? So we got, I mean, we're already over capacity.
Yes, I guess what I'm saying is when we're looking at needing to move things, keep in mind that you're looking at moving them close to 108,
right?
Not close to 100 because you can't do that.
Well, to his point, if you took the Copperfield and the Plantation, you wanted an alternative. If you just look at the old boundary,
Move some back into Morton.
of Jesse Clark and Beaumont, and then 12 old boundary in town,
That would even out Jesse Clark, or no, that would.
looked like they would take it back out of Beaumont, put it back in Jesse Clark, that's closer to town.
The Beaumont principal, and I know we're adding to Beaumont, not taking away, the Beaumont principal also was concerned about the loss of diversity and suggested that the area north of the colony on Versailles Road would be helpful in that regard.
Alan,
Yes, ma'am.
are we looking at any of the scenarios at this point in time, or are we on one area?
Well, let's stay where we are. We're already into it now. Let's stay on this.
Okay, do we want to go somewhere?
Sorry, Scott, I didn't hear you.
I was just going to ask, are we looking at something in specific?
Not yet. We're waiting. Right.
Well, do we want to look at how many students live in the Plantation Copperfield area to know how many to move, if that's the move that we're looking to make, find out how many kids live there in the middle school.
And then conversely, how many will have to move out to accommodate that? That's fair enough.
It's up around Mason Heatley's where we changed it from Jesse Clark to Beaumont. Changed that part back to Jesse Clark.
Scott, do you remember where Plantation and Copperfield are?
Copperfield is 579, 580, 81, and 88.
Thanks, Jim.
And then Plantation is 541, 540, 541, 570, and 573.
Scott, if you'll turn the high school boundary back on, it'll stick out like a sore thumb.
Okay.
I feel I have to make one comment that the logic that caused you to put those areas back in Dunbar was primarily distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
traffic pattern too.
Yeah, and feeder pattern is something that you now can look at the high school level. But clearly Copperfield and Plantation are much closer to Jesse Clark.
And that whole section makes sense. That whole Harrisburg Road
outside it
makes sense to go to Jesse Clark, but that's not what our listening session is.
Just don't be overburdened with that. Let's figure it out and do what's right, because that makes sense.
Doesn't that feed into Dunbar now? The part of Beaumont?
Yes. Yeah, currently they're in Beaumont and feeds into Dunbar.
I mean, that was some other point.
Feeder pattern works better.
The Beaumont is going to split now anyway, right? The way we just finished the high school map, so it doesn't. Will they go to
On the
Dunbar?
south side, Beaumont is going to split up by the mall and Mason Heatley and in that area. Yes, part of Beaumont's moving along yet.
Well, if that part went back to Jesse Clark, it doesn't end up like it.
Much of that goes just
Doing what's right, it wasn't just parental feedback that we got. We also had the principal tell us that she was concerned about what would happen to her programs if she lost these particularly extremely active and participatory neighborhoods.
Yep, we heard that a lot. But that's not empirical data, and probably changes from a year to another too.
So, what's our move?
Well, I think Scott, we're still looking to see the number of students that are in those areas, Plantation, and Copperfield, the study areas that Jim.
Where would you move them back to?
I don't know. We're not moving them. We're wondering how many students if it are
We just
Sorry, I was on the wrong one. Give me a second. Okay, Plantation, there's 62 students. And Copperfield, there are 59. So 121.
And if you made those moves and put them both into Beaumont,
That's 125%.
yeah,
Clark is still under 100%.
Better if Beaumont can find another spot for them. I mean, that seems to be the only alternative.
It might make sense to take some of the kids that were moved from Jesse Clark to Beaumont and move them back to Jesse Clark, more northward.
What's the most moved in for free and reduced?
Yeah, I was gonna say we.
Well, they're both
I'm talking about you go to the north.
right.
This is where we made the changes.
But they're both low free and reduced.
Yeah, right now Jesse Clark is
25%.
free and reduced, and putting more of that area back into Jesse Clark
Okay.
would help that
Actually,
free and reduced.
right.
What are we asking Scott to do here?
All right, so we know we've got 121 kids that potentially are moving to Beaumont. We need to go, I guess, probably north to see if there's 121 kids that we could move to Jesse Clark.
Well,
That's what we want to talk about.
121 plus whatever it would do to get Beaumont back into the realm of where we want it to be.
Right.
So you're looking at
A minimum of 120.
right, somewhere between 120 and 140 kids.
I'd like to go on record as saying that 121 kids is my entire sixth grade.
We think we have,
So your point is that that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. We get it.
we think we have some offsetting.
That's what we're looking for.
332, 333, 350, 351. What was in Jesse Clark to begin with when they moved to Beaumont. So we take those things back.
There's 35 students there.
I was told that. There's notes. Make sure to put some
So these 4 study areas have 35 students.
Where's that at?
The
Mason Healy to
Cheryl Lane, Lynn Road.
Charles Lane Road. Mason Healy to Lane.
They were going to Jesse Clark to begin with.
We're talking about putting them back at Jesse Clark. But we're still 100 students.
How many are in the Borden area that we moved?
And there's some up on Southland Drive on this, north of Southland Drive, that all that was in Jesse Clark.
What about that golf view? Maybe I'll leave that there.
I'm just trying to find one up at Clark.
Yeah.
trying to get
This is
stuff
not
out.
going to be easy to find, folks.
I think I'm confused about why we're looking to make this move.
And significant discussion in our listening sessions online. The neighborhood staying together, and B, from the principals suggesting significant of the culture.
particularly Copperfield and Plantation. And I think this other is to balance those numbers then. That move.
Yeah. So do we want to try to do this, or?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but culture was not one of our guidelines. So it's up to the pleasure of this committee as to whether you want to even take a look at that. I don't object to trying it, but
I would like to reserve our next meeting to look at the middle school. get a little start on it.
Okay.
Let's just be able to digest it a little bit. So,
Let's take a look at just these two.
well, we'd also mentioned Tate's Creek Southern
I know we.
now freed up capacity at Tate's Creek, and that one doesn't give anybody heartburn. So,
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
oh, sure.
Yeah, that needs to go back in there. That probably fixed it.
I mean, to me, another obvious one is
There's an area from south on Drive to Waller Avenue, there's a triangle that's between Harrisburg Road and Nixonville Road. Put that back in Jesse Clark. We had that in Morgan. Move it back to Jesse Clark, see what happens.
that doesn't help Beaumont, which is what we're trying to do.
We're trying to get the balance.
It does, you gotta get those kids.
It will eventually, because you're trying to make up kids for the Copperfield plantation.
It takes them out of Beaumont, puts them back.
Put them back in Jesse Clark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that doesn't help with Beaumont being over capacity.
Takes them out of Beaumont.
It does utilize.
I thought he just said more.
Well, this also would utilize Jesse Clark, taking everything on the one side of Harrisburg Road.
Okay,
and put it in
okay. We're going to make an executive decision here. Jot down those notes. These study areas specifically, we're going to jump right back into this in the next meeting, right where we are. Okay? Doug, Ron, you guys know this, Jim, Mike, we're leading this.
Yeah, and Alan, I would encourage us to think about perhaps that idea, and I think Bob was alluding to this, and we've others have talked about making Harrisburg Road the natural boundary, even though that goes against, as you said, that's not the principle that we can pledge to.
No, but listen, if we can make it work, if it makes sense, and you know, we have less heartburn, that's a good thing. I mean, I'm not against, you know, less heartburn, believe me. But I don't want to be doing it just willy-nilly, just to, you know, because we're hearing more from a particular area. If it makes sense, we'll do it. Okay, folks, thank you all for your Friday night time. When is our next meeting?
Monday night.
Monday.
We'll be right back here soon enough.
2016. We'll be adjourned.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Very good.
How many do we have?
Meeting started on